Nice, let's go to the presentation. Yeah, right, thank you all for coming out. This is Bartlett Street Area Reconstruction pre-con meeting. So we're putting this together so that we can present to you how the construction is going to be going on this project, how we're going to be informing you of the process, what to expect, that sort of thing. So that's what the purpose of this video is for. Switch it over. Next slide. Hi. So in this meeting, we're going to introduce you to the project team, go over the limits of the project, kind of give you an anticipated sequence of events for construction, talk to you about access during construction, where you can get information on the project, and then we'll take questions at the end. So the project team, I'm Mark Batchelder. I'm the design engineer on the project, working with City of Portsmouth. Also here tonight for City of Portsmouth, we have Tyler Reese, associate engineer, Eric Fiedler, the city engineer, Dave DeFosis, the construction superintendent, or supervisor, Eric Eves in the back there, our traffic engineer. Our contractors are also here from Albanese. This is Petro, and I didn't put your name up here.
Sorry, Andrea.
And for our construction engineering team, we have Altus Engineering. So we have Eric Weinrib, principal. We have Corey Belden, project manager, and we have Steve Borowski, who will be the on-site construction inspector. For the project limits, we also have at the end of the meeting, if you want to take a look, we have printouts in the back. They're the same printout, but large sheets so that you can see the scope of the work. But the project limits on this is Bartlett Street, essentially from the Kate Street intersection, but not the Kate Street intersection, going through to Dennett Street, Thornton from Woodbury Ave to about 200 feet past Bartlett Street, a portion of Woodbury Ave from Bartlett to Morning Street, and then a few side street extensions. Pretty much those are to tie in utilities and to tie in curb lines and things of that nature. So next slide. So how did we get here? Many of you have been involved in this from the start, and so we've had first off, we identified some needed upgrades in the Bartlett Street area. And then we've had multiple public input meetings where we've got your input and how you'd like to see your neighborhood come forward as part of this project. So we had 3 input meetings, and then we did have some traffic calming trials last summer. And then we took those and went to final design, went out to bid in February, and here we are ready for construction starting in the spring of this year. So project overview. So this project's main purpose is to replace the underground utilities. This is mostly water and sewer. The drain portion is only a small portion of work there because the existing drainage system is in good condition. So the extension of the drainage is in order to deal with some sewer separation closer to the Thornton Bartlett Street intersection. Then it transitions into a roadway reconstruction project where we're going to be rebuilding the road and then new sidewalks. And the purpose of the new sidewalks is to get back up to our city standards so that we can now plow the city sidewalks. And there was the existing ones, as you know, they have a lot of points where our city plow, which is 5 foot wide, can't make it through. So that was one of the big concerns there. And also to make sure that our city sidewalks are ADA compliant. Then we'll also be providing some new streetscaping, which includes some traffic calming features that we've taken from input from the public on that. So there's just a couple of photos of existing conditions. You all, I'm sure, are aware of what your street looks like, but these are, you know, some of the situations that I was talking about with the sidewalks, with the fire hydrant in the way so that the city plow can't come through and clear snow there. You know, there are some areas of poor drainage, things like that. So those are the existing conditions of Bartlett Street, and then next slide, I think, is Thornton as well. You know, it's very wide, some drainage concerns there. And then next slide. So as we've presented multiple times, what our proposal is and what the design ultimately became is narrowing up the street as part of one of the features for traffic calming to 32-foot wide, and allowing parking on both sides. This allows for essentially a 16-foot travel lane when there's two vehicles that are parked. And then you have the self-regulating alternating traffic that will help slow things down. And in this scenario, we also have sidewalks on both sides. Next slide. These next few slides are just going through essentially what's back there on the paper, which is just the roadway layout from Kate Street to Morning Street, where we're going to be extending the sidewalk, which currently is a cow path through this area here. Actually, there's no sidewalk. So we're going to be widening up the sidewalk in front of the auto repair shop, bringing it up through here so it's continuous on this side of the street. And that's pretty much it for the area in this area. There's no underground utilities there. For the next section, essentially Morning Street up through. This is the tightest, the tightest spot. The road is currently 24-foot wide. There'll be no parking allowed there. And then as you get up through this section here, this is where we start widening out to 32-foot wide, where we're going to allow the parking. The other thing is about this area here, we're putting in some no parking bump outs around the Clinton Street intersection. The reason for this is because there's some sight distance concerns there, and turning radius concerns as well, and getting some better sight distances, especially out of Woodbury. Next one. All right, so from Pine Street to Thornton, what we've installed and put in for another traffic calming feature is the crosswalk at Pine Street. We're narrowing that section up with bump outs to 20 feet wide, and the crosswalk itself will be a raised crosswalk, so essentially a speed bump at that location. And then similarly at the next intersection with Thornton, the road goes from 32-foot down to 26-foot wide at the intersection to help throttle that down and slow down traffic at the intersection. Now that intersection itself, which I'll talk about in another slide, is still some options for additional traffic calming there that have to be decided on. But next slide. Okay, Thornton to Dennett Street, very similar, 26-foot wide, then going back out to the 32-foot wide to have street parking in that area, again, to help with sight lines, throttle down that intersection so that people aren't just coming down Thornton Street and making that right-hand turn because it's so wide open, it's so easy to make a turn like that. Next slide. This is Thornton Street. Thornton Street similarly, 32-foot wide, parking on both sides. The big difference here is we're removing the center island up at the top of the hill by Woodbury. And what that allows us to do is we're pushing the street out in this direction slightly so that we can get a sidewalk all the way through in that area. And then we're teeing up Thornton Street a little bit better to Woodbury. This will add more green space on this side. Next slide. This is the still to be determined traffic calming feature at the intersection of Thornton and Bartlett Street. In this scenario, which we put in as an add alt, there's we'd be putting in a raised intersection with a two-way stop. So Bartlett Street would not have the stop signs Thornton Street would. That will be going to PTS for discussions and approval in the future. So this is something that we anticipate most likely that's our preferred choice is this scenario instead of the four-way stop. But like I said, it has to get approved done before we can execute that at all. Next slide. Okay, so now we're going to talk about time frame, how the construction process is going to be going. So for the first stage, we're looking at having the construction starting in near the Hodgenbrook area up to about Pine Street, give or take. That utility work will be the first stage, and then it'll go into the second stage from Pine Street to Denon. Now, in each one of these stages, you'll see us, it'll look like we're digging in the same spot multiple times, because the way that utility work is done, we start with the lowest utility first, which will be sewer. We're gonna come through, do the sewer main coming through. Then we're gonna come back and do the water main from start to finish, and then drainage start to finish. So we'll be having to come back and forth multiple times, and then we will tie into all the services at the end of each one of those. So the thing that will most likely start, the very first thing will be temporary water main, because currently the water main that we're going to be putting in this section, we have to put it in the exact same location as the existing one. So the only way we can do that is take that existing one offline by putting in a temporary water main. So that'll be probably the first phase. That'll take a couple of weeks to get that up and running. Next slide. So then after utility work happens, then we get to put the street back together. So that will be kind of the same kind of phase sequencing, first starting in this area and then going to this area. So generally speaking, what's probably gonna be happening is utility work's gonna be going on in this area in July through September. And in this area, the street's gonna be starting to get put back together and working our way up through. So I believe they're gonna have a second crew come on around that like July, August timeframe to start putting the street back together. Next slide. Okay, utility connections. So one of the other first things that we're going to be doing is we're going to be requesting to get access to basements to identify where your utilities are coming out, kind of the depth, size, piping, things like that, and especially to identify if you've got galvanized water services. That's one of the first things that we want to identify, so that it's highly, highly recommended that if you do have a galvanized water service, that it gets replaced with the industry standard of copper. Now, these water lines were put in the 20s, give or take, and they're 40s, and they're really right at the end of their life expectancy. So
if you have a pipe going through your basement wall that has threaded connections like the ones that are up on the screen, that's a galvanized steel water line, and what happens is they rot from the inside out. So you don't even know that your pipe's about to blow out, and then until it happens, and then you have no water, and you have to hire somebody to dig a gigantic hole in the street, and it's not cheap. So if you have a pipe like that, I recommend you let us know about it sooner rather than later. Come downstairs, take a look at where your water meter is down in the basement, and look at the pipe between the water meter and to the foundation wall. If it has threaded connections, please reach out to us.
okay, next slide. Okay, so on top of some more information on your utility connections or your services to your houses. Each one of the utilities, water, sewer, drainage, we will be replacing essentially from the main to the property line or backside of the sidewalk, give or take. They're very close to pretty much the same location. So that's part of the scope of work that the city's undertaking as part of this project, is from the main to the property line. And then drain services, which is a new thing for this area, because I don't think anybody really has any drains connections, are going to be put into the property line as well. And this is to pick up some pumps, gutters, things of that nature, things that you should not be putting into this septic or in the sewer pipe But just, once those get installed to the property line, you'll be able to connect into them. You'll just need to contact the city and, get a permit for that connection, but that's the idea is to get all that surface runoff or anything that you're like sump pumps and things like that, utilizing, the drain lines and not the sewer.
Yeah, and the permit is more just for like a tracking purposes. We just want to know where you put it in, what are you connecting into it type thing, just so we have a good account of what's up. But those will be capped and it would be your responsibility on the private property side of things. And it's, if there's any ponding issues and things like that, these are great for resolving those kind of existing issues that before we go in the sewer, just go in the street.
Yeah, and we'll work with each of you on your individual property locations, because typically what we like to do on a drain lateral is we try to find the lowest point and of your property and come in at that corner, but that may not be the most appropriate corner for you. Maybe your sump pump discharge is on the other side and your roof leader or your roof gutter system's on the other side, but so we'll work with you on that to get the proper location that works best with you. This is just a pictorial of kind of what we discussed here with the typical water service, water main. This is where the property line is, and generally in that area is the water shutoff. And this is what we're going to be replacing. Again, if we identify that this section here is galvanized, we're going to, again, highly recommend that you replace that sooner rather than later, because from there on would be your responsibility. Similarly, this sewer line, sewer main connection here, there's the main. We're going to come up right here, give or take is the property line about on the back of the sidewalk. So we're going to be replacing from this point to the main. We'll have a clean out so that we can do our testing and things like that, but you would be responsible for anything from this point to the house. Next slide. Okay, so the other concern is access during construction. Some of the locations, especially between the brook and Woodbury Ave, because it's so tight, the road there is only 24 feet wide. Most likely we're going to end up having to do some kind of a detour or something like that. So access to properties are going to be have to be dealt with on a day-to-day basis. So we have to provide access obviously to your property throughout the day. However, there may be times that getting your car into your driveway is not going to be possible. We're gonna, we'll have the whatever main that we're working on cutting right in front of your driveway. And so we'll work with you to get access. You just have to know that those days you may not get access to put your car in your driveway during the construction period of the day. Now, we're going to make every effort at the beginning of the day. We know that we're going from here to here, this 100 feet. We know we're going to affect these couple of driveways to contact you and maybe the night before or first thing in the morning before we even start excavating to let you get out of your driveway, things of that nature. And you'll always be allowed to walk on the sidewalk and get access to your property. But just getting in and out of the driveway may be difficult at times. And as I talked about, the roadway will have some traffic control plan that we've got to review and approve. That'll deal with any detours to one-way alternating traffic, things of that nature, depending on where the work is going on the project. And then, so the other thing is with parking, the most of Bartlett Street will be identified as no parking. This will be obviously for the construction work that's going on, some staging of materials that has to be provided along the.
It's a plane.
That's a plane?
It's a plane, don't worry about it.
So there'll be some lay down of materials along the roadway, things like that. So parking along Bartlett Street itself is going to be very, very limited during the construction. So we ask that if you're coming
during the week.
Yes,
I mean, during the weekend, they're not gonna be there. So as long as you can park safely, they're not gonna care, but in the areas where you can park on the street now, of course. But in general during the week, they're gonna wanna start it right at 7 o'clock every morning. So unless you're, an early morning riser and you're out the door at 6:30, then, be prepared not to be parking in the way, please.
So I recommend utilizing some of the side streets to park on, so. Next. There's a lot of information here, but these are public information sources, so we'll have some field personnel. Stephen, he is the city's eyes and ears out, that's gonna be on site out there for us. So if you have any questions, you're on the site and you need there's a concern or something like that. Steve's our guy out there. I will also be out there as well, so if you see me, feel free to grab me as well. I'll at one of the last slides, I have our contact information, so if you want to get that down so that you know that we're the two main people associated with dealing with the public information on this.
Your contact info will be on the website.
And it will be on, it's on the web, it will be, yes.
Personal cell phone number.
We can call either. We can call either.
Well, that's the goal, is, we have Steve on site full-time, Mark will be out there as well, but that's the goal, is make sure our communication lines are open, so.
Yeah.
We wanna make sure we catch things before it becomes a real problem.
We'll have message boards out there from time to time. We do, Stephanie, sorry, I forgot to introduce you early on. Stephanie, our public information, and Monty as well. Sorry, Monty. So they keep track.
Writing it all down.
Yeah. They keep track of all of our social media and do all of our social media posts. So we'll have stuff on that. We also have a project webpage on the City of Portsmouth's DPW website. That's the link to it now. It hasn't been updated in a little while. I plan on doing that by the end of the week to include everything that we talked about here, including the presentation. That'll be up there as well. We also have a weekly newsletter, and as we talked about with the sign-in sheets, we do an email distribution list. So if you want that, be sure to get your email written on those sheets.
And if you got an email this morning about this meeting, you're on the list.
Next. Okay, now we are in the questions phase.
Where's the staging area then?
On the side of Bartlett Street, on the road, on the edges where the parking is currently. That's the only area that we have for staging. So that's why I said parking is gonna be very limited on the street, because they're gonna have to bring in, they're gonna be limited to the amount of materials that they can bring in based off of that kind of laydown space.
Yeah, we have a lot of projects in the city and there's only so many laydown areas, and I think for, other parts of Dave's projects, and we really just don't have any more real estate, so this is gonna be a challenge, so.
I missed it, but are there any changes at the intersection where Bartlett meets Hodgson, or that's all set?
So currently, as of right now, the contract is set for a 4-way stop intersection.
Bartlett or Hudson,
Oh, wait, sorry,
which is Kate Street.
Bartlett and,
Yeah, down where you come under the bridge and.
oh, that's
it would
not
have-
part of this project.
We're starting up past that.
Yes.
That's done.
This project starts basically at BC Lumber's
Yeah.
driveway for water main work.
Yeah.
And goes up the hill. For streetscape work, it starts just beyond that intersection and starts going up the hill, principally for the sidewalks by,
Dollar shops, yeah.
Right.
So I think Eric we have a longer term project dealing with the railroad. I mean, you wanna give an update on that?
Yes, the city has been awarded a grant from Federal Railroad Administration to redesign the bridge, the railroad bridge, and move it and straighten out that intersection. So that we should be expecting the funding to start this summer and get that design project underway. So that probably take years on design, and then after that we move on to construction. But, that's the big solution to that intersection.
It's great news.
But that's long term though. So
Yes.
it's planning, then you have to do the railroads, and work a whole bunch of.
Oh, yeah. That doesn't-
Should we reach out to a contractor for our portion of the sewer and water? Should we reach out individually? Should we as a group, try to get a group rate, or how should we go about that?
How have we dealt with that, like, we've,
Generally speaking, we have we can provide you with a list of 4 or 5 different contractors that you can also contract with. Obviously, there's gonna be a general contractor on site. Whether they're willing to do that work or not, we haven't even talked to them yet. Our meeting with them is tomorrow, so we haven't even. This is happening so fast that we haven't even had a chance to launch this subject. So, if they wanna be on that list, they certainly can be. And, we have a list of contractors that are, general to the area. And we try to broaden the list so that we're not pointing to it in particular group. But, we can make that list available.
That rates.
we got somebody on.
Adam shares.
Hello, Beth?
Hi, hi, can you guys hear me?
We can,
Hello,
Hello,
Yes,
we can hear
I'm
you.
talking. Can you guys hear me?
yes.
We muted you? We're not
No,
muted.
we're not muted.
We can hear you, Beth.
Oh, okay, I just couldn't hear you. Zoom. Okay, yeah, my question is, somebody said, please get in touch with me if you have this type of water line. Who was that person that we need to get in touch with?
You can contact me, Mark Batchelder. My
Okay.
my contact information's gonna be at the end of the slideshow and is also online, but you can contact me.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
To clarify, a follow-up, are we, everybody is replacing the connection or only those with galvanized pipes?
So if you've got a galvanized pipe, there's a chance that it's galvanized all the way out to the main. The
Right.
city is gonna be replacing from the main to the property line, which is essentially where your water shutoff is.
Right.
And what we're gonna do is we're gonna connect to that galvanized line that you've got then from there into the house. But we are, again, highly recommend, now's the time to do it, because if that goes, when we've got construction crews on site, things are gonna be already.
Yeah. I just didn't sure, it's everybody or only those with the
No, and
galvanized?
I mean, the galvanized, anybody that's got copper, there's no reason to replace that.
Copper lines generally last a very, very long time, so that. The main that we're replacing, we call it second generation main, so it's the first generation that was highly pressurized. First generation was the wood water main. So, and they ran it 2, 3, 4 pounds of pressure. So the cast iron lines we started putting in when people started putting bathrooms in their houses. So that's about the age of the water main that is up from Woodbury Ave up to Dennett Street. Is original second generation 1890 something pipe. So it is possible that your water service going to your house is also that old. The water main, there's actually 2 of them, but the water mains from Woodbury Avenue down to WC Lumber are newer. They're from 1941, just before the war started. So still pretty old, but not nearly as old. Think about the other water main was already 60 years old when they put that one in. So that's why we're replacing the water mains, because it is more than due. So if you have a copper line, that means your original galvanized water line has already blown out and somebody else already paid to replace it. Lucky you, because you already paid for it when you bought the house. If you still have a galvanized line, we highly recommend it, 'cause like I said, I had a galvanized line at my house that I had on Calvert Street, and it blew, and that was back when things were cheap. It was only $5,000, that was like 20 years ago, so, because I had to dig out in the middle of the street all by myself and hire police officers, and, it is a very expensive proposition if you have to replace the line. Luckily, the city is going to be replacing everything to the shutoff, the little shutoff disc that's on the street. And we do that because we really don't want you digging out the road after we're done. But if you have a galvanized line and you have the means to replace it, well, it's still cheap because there are contractors on site. Then we will highly recommend that you do that. We will shut off the water for you. You can hire a plumber that can then attach the water meter on the inside of the house. It is a much cheaper job if you do it while we're doing our work. So if you have one of these threaded lines inside, you can usually tell either sometimes, and most of them have a repair sleeve around them because they already started bursting inside the house. But if you see threaded connections and you scratch the line coming through the foundation with a coin, and it doesn't, if it's green, you're good, it's corroded copper, but if it's galvanized, it starts coming back to silver, don't scratch too much. Right? But if you don't, if it starts coming back silver or rusty, you should probably do something, you don't have to. The same thing can be said, a lot of the sewer laterals, so again, the sewer main in this area was installed when people started putting flush toilets in their house. So that was the 1890s, so mostly what you will have is you'll have cast iron plumbing drains that go through the foundation wall, and that's the part that you can see inside your basement. And then outside, there are actually clay tiles made by the Romans that were that are outside. And that clay tile actually goes out to the clay sewer line. So back when they did that, this is kind of like the original sewers that we have in downtown, like homemade concrete. You don't have that, this area gets sewered later. So, but the lines are clay, and if you have a clay line. And so generally what we do is when we go to connect each house, we'll take a flashlight and we'll look up the pipe. It's kind of scary. And I don't recommend it for squeamish, but we will look up, and if it's full of roots or if it's collapsing, we will let you know that you probably should have your sewer line replaced. And that's kind of the same thing as the water service. I mean, things only last so long underground. And the clay tiles were much better than the homemade concrete that we see in the downtown area, but they're still, and if they were laid right, they're good. Last year, we did a project on Market Street where the clay sewer line under Market Street, right in Market Square, was so nice that we actually just put a plastic silk line right through it because it was still nice and straight. And there was really only one crack in it, but that's because Market Street sand. It's the only place in town, other than the Portsmouth Plains, that is sand. Every place else in this city is nasty clay, and because they were digging a lot of these pipes by hand, the pipes kind of go like this, and they're buried in clay, and the clay is pushing on the pipe kind of this way and that way, and a lot of times the pipes crack. So as we're replacing our side of your sewer lateral, we will look up the pipe and let you know if we think you have a problem. And then it's up to you whether you want to just put your head in the sand. If there was some, you could, but there isn't. So if you want to stick your head in the clay, just pretend that it doesn't exist, that's fine with us. We don't really care. Like I said, it's your sewer lateral. We will give you information, and then it's up to you to make decisions.
But we probably want to look into it before you guys put your head in the thing.
So the other way you can do that is you can hire Roto-Rooter or any of these other companies that go around and they cut the roots out of your sewer pipes. All these guys have camera systems
I see.
where they'll unscrew the cap that's in the cast iron line from inside your basement, and they'll stick a little camera down there, and you can get your own independent inspection. So before our contractor shows up, you know either, hey, my pipe was good, and we can actually get a video, there'll be a little CD. If you still got a computer that'll actually look at a CD, I think they probably give you a key fob nowadays, right?
Yeah.
They'll probably,
If you want to watch that.
I don't think that. It
But
depends,
as I
right?
said earlier, you can sometimes see it coming into the house. If it's galvanized, you might see it coming into the house.
Well, that's water.
That's
Yeah,
water,
that's
I'm
water.
talking about sewer pipes. So, yeah, I mean, sewer pipes are, well, sometimes they're interesting to look at, you know?
And some of the, in the cities under consent decree, where we're trying to, separate the stormwater and the wastewater systems. But a surprisingly large amount of the the stormwater that comes in is actually groundwater coming in through those service connections. There's a lot of crushed ones and the connections themselves are pretty.
And because the soils will pour,
Right, you
the
get a lot of water.
water will find its way, whatever is easiest, and a broken pipe is an easy place to find a way.
In a water supply line, I'm sorry, am I stepping over?
I'm just adding on to your question from earlier, but go ahead.
I was just, quick question about the water supply line. Do you need to trench to the foundation to put that in, or is there a way to sort of tunnel
Yeah,
it through?
there are ways to do that, yeah.
Yeah.
They have like a Chinese finger that they can pull a pipe in through, they don't always have to trench it, but it's usually easiest to trench it. It's usually more work to do it that way, but it can be done, because as you know, a lot of people have porches and stuff, you can't really, it seems like a lot of people put porches on top of their water line. And as an engineer, I don't understand it, as an architect, you probably do. I understand, you know. No, it's just the way it is. Most of the old houses in this town, the water line's going right in under the porches. I'm like, how do you get to that? What's that? I was like,
So to sort of follow up to Annie's and Martin's questions, if we know we want to redo our sewer line
Yeah.
at a time, and we know we need to reroute our sump pump out of the sewer line into the storm drains.
to be a good doobie. I haven't even got to that one.
Yeah,
yet. Go ahead.
should we just go ahead and submit a permit application now, or should we wait till you're
You
there?
don't need a permit application to replace an existing sewer line.
We don't.
Because it's already permitted,
Perfect.
okay? So you don't need that,
Okay.
believe it or not. It's one of the things you don't need a permit for. If you're replacing your water service, you should get a plumbing permit to replace your water service. If you're putting in a drain pipe, you also, the only permit you need for that is a stormwater connection permit, which Eric alluded to already.
Right.
And that's just basically super trap. So a lot of people have sump pumps in their basement. And one of two things happens. Either they knocked it out through a cellar window and it goes outside and it makes a big ice pond on the sidewalk so that we can have ice capades all in there. Or sometimes people who don't know better connect it to their cast iron sewer pipe down in the basement and the groundwater is going to the sewer treatment plant. So that we all pay more money for the sewer treatment plant when that happens. So one of the reasons why we give you the stormwater pipe, which we left at the property line about this far down. So that it's reasonable that somebody could actually go out there and by hand and extend it to their house. So it's not left 4 feet down so that you have to hire somebody. It's left at a distance underground, so that's plausible that a homeowner could actually do it if they were so inclined to go out there with pitchforks and axes and not pitchforks, but pickaxes. Right, pickaxes and shovels and you know, if you had a son. That maybe was a little nefarious like I was. My father, I did something, I forget what I did, but I dug the foundation for our addition when I was 16. My father handed me a shovel and said, "Go for it, son." So and I never, ever learned anything.
But in terms of timing though, I guess, do we wanna apply for it sooner, or is it better to wait until we're closer into like syncing up schedule?
I would know, I would say that if you need stuff, please let us know and we will guide you through the system, whether you need a permit or not. We'll at least know about it and then we'll at least be able to start communicating. Communication is key. It's what reduces stress.
Yeah, cause we can locate it where you think makes sense, right, outside of the house, cause we thought, I know, like Mark's done a good job of trying to say like, okay, it's probably here versus there, but we can move it just to make sure it's the optimal location.
Yep.
Some time ago, someone from the town came and looked at our water pipe. And would it be correct to assume that they didn't come back and say, hey, you've got a galvanized pipe, you're safe, or is that a bad assumption?
They should have followed up with you. So basically, the federal government is forcing, and the state is forcing us to make sure that we know exactly what material on everybody's water lines in the entire city. So if they went out there and did an assessment, we didn't know what you had. But my thought is they were supposed to follow up and notify you that, yeah, you're good or you're not. So if you haven't been, let's make sure we get your name and we can follow up and get you that information.
Right, and then we'll thrash them.
Yeah. 'cause there's-
They
It could have
said
been,
you're good, but they didn't send me anything official, they just told
Did you
me,
say they're good?
they said you're good, and I
Because
haven't,
you already have a copy.
yeah, that's what they
then
said.
you're good. If they said verbally that you're good, but if you want if you didn't get that information, then we'll get it for you. And it might
Follow
be
up
just
on
not.
the dirty water side. I believe that our building has a connection for sewer, which has been replaced. But in the front, I think there is a connection that goes out to Bartlett Street that isn't used. When the town comes and does all that work, will they completely sever that and
Yes,
do they
so,
know to do it?
so, yes,
Which site
contractors are
numbers?
pretty good at knowing which pipes are still active and which ones aren't. There are ways to tell.
Yeah, one of them is to go.
I'm not gonna get into it now. Yeah, if there are dead pipes, and there will be dead pipes, because, you know, things change, I mean, at one time, there might have been a house there, and now there's not. You know, there was a.
It was
fire,
at
and everybody
Dawn's
built
when
a
they
house.
added on, they went off Clinton Street.
Yeah,
What
all
happened?
kinds of things.
Can you catch us, so at the end, let's get your contact information, just so we get all your information.
And that goes along the lines of also being able to get access early on into basements and things like that, because I know the first 3 houses off of Woodbury, their sewer goes behind, it doesn't go out to Woodbury, it goes behind and ties into Bartlett Street on the three
But
houses.
they have stubs in the front
But they have stubs in the front, so,
that were installed.
Yeah.
a Long time ago.
yeah. So we have scenarios like that, so that's key to find out exactly where your lines are coming out of the basements, your houses. And I also wanted to touch, I did not put up here, and I realized that I want to touch, I know he's already asked about it, so when there's scenarios where we have to turn your water off. So there's gonna be scenarios, excuse me, where we actually have to do a water shutdown, and those scenarios are when we're essentially transferring from the existing to a temporary, and then from the temporary back. Those scenarios, you will be given 72 hours notice of them. They may be in the duration of 4 hours, give or take, depending on the scenario of shutdown, but we are required to give a 72-hour notice on that. Other I don't want to call them shutdowns, but there'll be times when we will have the new water main in service, and we are going to be tying over your service to the new one. This will be like a 15-minute, you're out of water. Those
And we'll
scenarios,
let you know way ahead of time,
we will let you know ahead of time so that, you know,
not the shower, et cetera, et cetera.
so those, I forgot to talk about that earlier, but that question usually comes up.
Are you gonna notify by door hangs? How are you gonna?
Well, we first try to knock on the doors, and then it'll be leaving door hangers or notes or things like that. For any of the shutdowns, like the 72-hour notice ones, those will be official city notices that go door to door. I'll knock on the doors too, and hopefully
All
talk
the
to
doors.
people. What's that?
All the doors.
All the
Even
doors.
bulkhead doors, everything.
Yeah.
Knock.
So, but that'll be an official notice, and piggyback on all that, it'll be on our social media, it'll be on all the things that we have in the city for communications.
And Steve will be out there, Mark will be out there, I mean, there'll be a lot of people out there, so.
Air raid sirens.
The whole thing.
And there'd be a special email notice that 72 hours ahead to your specific Bartlett Street project list. When you turn off the water on Bartlett, will it impact any of the side streets?
Yes. And depending upon what we're doing, it will impact you, or it may not impact you. So it depends. When they're getting into the system for the first time, there's gonna be a bigger shutdown at first. Because they have to kill the 2 old mains, the one from ancient times and then the one from the 40s. So they got 2 mains to knock down. And there are people that are services come off the 40s main, and there are people that services come off the 1890s main. And we're not really gonna know until we go to put in the temporary water services, which line you're on. So there'll be a little bit of that to begin with. And it's really kind of unavoidable Because you don't really have ties to which lines are on which pipes.
We think we know, most of, 99%.
We think we know,
Yeah.
but we are sometimes wrong.
Can you comment about the sidewalks and the bike provisions and also the right of way landscaping and beautification, all that stuff? Because when I saw Dennett Street, we had redone a few years ago, we didn't get much. Like the sidewalks themselves, I'm assuming they're gonna be brand new, concrete, not bricks.
Correct, brand new concrete sidewalks, one side, as the, I believe, 5.5 foot wide is the new city standard. One side of the street, I guess that would be the north side. So the side with Clinton, Pine, Meredith Way, this sidewalk would be right against the granite curb. The other side, Thornton, Woodbury side, Woodbury side, we will have a grass strip. That's why if you see right now, utility poles have been relocated and they look like they're out in the middle, or not middle, on the edge of the street. That's where the grass strip is gonna be going. So the new sidewalks are gonna be behind those. They'll have a 3-foot grass strip, curbing and things like that. So
And there'll be a decent bike lane, kind of.
it's,
No, like, you
So you're just,
we're right
you're on.
here.
So I guess my follow-up question is the whole intersection at Thornton, Bartlett, that discussion about whether to make it four-way or raised, when is that gonna happen for the public?
Right now.
yeah,
No, it is.
No, I mean,
Well,
we,
you got PT.
there's a PTS meeting, Parking and Traffic Safety Committee meeting is next Thursday morning. And it is on the agenda for them to vote on making that a raised intersection or leaving it a four-way stop. And we would very much like to hear people's opinions tonight, and if not, show up at the meeting on Thursday morning or contact, representatives of the committee. Because that's the time that the decision will be made so that we can incorporate it into the project. It is our recommendation to make it a raised intersection, similar to the ones on Maplewood and Edmund. And then remove the stop signs on Bartlett, because the stop signs do not belong on Bartlett, right? That's why people go through that intersection and don't stop. The raised intersection is the better treatment for that location. It'll slow down the traffic. And it will provide the traffic calming that people have been looking for in the neighborhood.
But aren't we looking for traffic to go on Woodbury? Isn't it a better route?
Woodbury is a one-way.
I know, but when people are going into town,
Yeah, oh, that, it is right
so
now.
it's
The volume on, right now, the volume on Bartlett is 85% heading away out of town.
Right.
The rest of the time is coming in on Woodbury.
so it's the out of town.
It's out of town that's heading up Bartlett Street. And
But if you made a four-way stop, wouldn't it encourage people to leave out the new road instead of turning up
Well,
Bartlett Street?
Well, it already is a four-way stop. Okay. What's gonna detour people off of Bartlett Street is getting the bypass fixed, getting rid of that signal at Oakland Cottage and put some in traffic, which is other things that we have to do. So then, and traffic calming, and if we do the raised intersection, that also allows the opportunity to put the flashing RFBs at the crosswalks. We can't do those at stop signs. And if we do the raised intersection and people don't like it, we can always come back later and put the four-way stop back. But we can't do a four-way stop and be done with the project and then come back and do a raised intersection. That's why we're recommending the raised intersection be done as part of the project.
I know that when we had the last meeting about that intersection, when the roundabout got vetoed, it came down to those two options, and I remember asking at that time, was there an opportunity to have a raised intersection trial? And the answer was no. So when you're saying we could do it and then remove it.
No, I don't mean remove it, I
Oh.
mean do it and then come back and add stop signs to it later on, but
Oh.
we really don't think you're gonna need a four-way stop if you do a raised intersection. That's gonna slow traffic down enough that it's gonna work much
Keep
better.
in mind that we've changed the nature of the layout of the road, so the road is gonna be narrower than it is today. It's gonna be a shared lane, it's gonna be like going down Cass Street. Anybody goes over to Pick and Pay and then over toward Middle Street. That street's gonna operate like Cass Street, where two vehicles can pass, but they have to pass relatively slowly. So that is your traffic calming mechanism. We're also putting in the raised crosswalk at the playground. We're recommending the raised intersection at Thornton Street as the third traffic control mechanism. So that's what we're recommending. It's on the design plans, we're going to build it. Thursday, we will make the choice, next Thursday, we'll make the choice, what we're gonna do. That is the last decision that is to be made. Other than that, what we're building is set in stone.
I mean, it's feels like at this point now, such a small piece of everything that you're doing. Whereas before, all the other meetings, it was that intersection, the intersection, the intersection. Now to hear it in the big scope of things, I'm not saying your decision is made, but it sounds like it's part of the bigger plan. So, I mean, when I first came to the meeting, it was because the roundabout had surprised me and I just couldn't go through and take that left. It wasn't working for me. And I couldn't take it out of Clinton Street and I couldn't take it out of Dennett. And I was struggling just to take the left without having to go all the way downtown. I found my way out on Pine Street, so I'm feeling pretty calm about it all. But for me, it isn't about the calming measures, and I understand that's the bigger picture, so I'm getting the bigger picture. For me, it's trying to get out of Thornton Street, taking the left. So my small little vote will not be coming again on Thursday. I like the four-way stop because I feel confident that whether it's another car is there, I've never had them roll through. I saw the roll through on the demonstration and I don't want to say I didn't care. I didn't mind it because nobody was there when they were rolling through. In the same way roundabout, they weren't stopping. It's for me when I was trying to get out of Thornton, waiting for my opportunity. And so I don't expect to come Thursday. I'm fine in the big picture of what you have going on here. I'm one person and I have another way out. So I think you've done a tremendous job of listening to people and making a big plan. I don't like the end result of Thornton, but I think it's good.
Just go over the timeline. This whole project is gonna be done by the end of the year, or is it, you say, like, you said, like, they're gonna do the utilities and then put the street back together, the lower part, and then let's put back together like temporarily or like permanently?
No, so by the end of the construction season this year, everything except for top coat of asphalt,
Final
paving,
and final markings.
final striping will be completed.
So there'll be like a rough.
So it's our binder grade. I'm trying to think of anywhere near here that it's
probably
for this winter.
Yeah.
You won't even be able to tell.
The section of
right now, right?
Market from the square back to Bow would like that for this past year.
Gotcha. Okay.
And
All right,
right now,
so-
we have really rough, schedules right now. And I think the contractor's gonna be working on refining those schedules. And I think we can get you more information and more specificity around the schedule as we get a little bit further into this.
That's fine. I was expecting a longer timeline, I was surprised that it's actually gonna pretty much be wrapped up. You think it's gonna be pretty much
Yeah,
wrapped
I mean,
up?
barring weather, if we get, monsoon season or something, obviously that'll have an effect, but, for the most part. That was the other thing is we did have an adult to do Morning Street.
Alright.
But that was not, we didn't have the funding for that, and that was one of those scenarios where we thought that would definitely push it out to a second year. If we had to do Morning Street as well.
Nothing is done on Morton Street.
We're extending water services, but we're also probably gonna have to do some storm drainage improvements there, just because there's some.
We will be doing some
Yeah,
work,
there'll be work there.
but it's not getting us.
Correct.
So the raised thing at the corner of Thornton and Bartlett, it's gonna be the same height as the ones on Dennett. I'm not Dennett, Maplewood, is what I understood. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, I can do those at 35.
You can?
Yeah. It's my camera.
Does Miles know?
Wow, it's faster than I always try to see how fast can you go, and I can do it 35 in my camera. So,
It's all turning hard left.
no, it's going straight across. And that's my concern is that people who have higher vehicles than mine,
Yeah,
like a pickup truck,
yeah.
can probably do those raised, straight across faster.
Not at 35.
You don't think so?
Well, they can try the first time.
Yeah, you see those nice stripes going up the, right, the gouges.
I think that you're probably right for 16-year-olds.
What are you trying to say?
Nothing, nothing at all.
So is there any more background to the consensus that everyone's thought about it, the engineering behind it, that the city lands on the raised, platform and the solution?
Yeah, I mean, it's the best solution for calming in that location, other than, the roundabout that we tried, that wasn't met with much approval. So, I mean,
Or we just leave it the way it is.
yeah, or we leave it the way it is, or we do it, we can always come back and put the four ways back if it isn't working out.
But how is a platform more calming than a four-way stop sign?
It forces you to slow down. So
Yeah.
the sign doesn't make you stop, it's stopping. you
People are
to
just
stop.
not, I've never seen it.
All day long.
Oh.
Oh, okay.
I can see it from like.
So people don't even slow down.
If they don't see anybody there, they don't. But if they see somebody there, they do.
I think the flashing pedestrian sign is.
I think that's
So
a
because it's
bad
sort of,
topic.
are you gonna be there next Thursday? So if that point could be driven home, because that's a huge addition and benefit to have the flashing pedestrian sign, in my opinion.
I mean, the flashing signs aren't part of this project, but
No.
they could be added.
Added later,
Yeah.
okay, great, that's
Yeah, you can't have a stop sign
Good.
and a flashing.
right.
Good spell first, go ahead.
Mark, I hate to lose best picture, but you have the early slide where you show the diagram, the width of the street, and it was mentioned the self-regulating, alternating.
Yep.
Can you talk a little bit about that, like
Yep.
which sections? We're gonna use with that?
Go back to there.
That's from Woodbury Avenue. To that.
Snap and layer on that. Now you should be able to arrow back.
Keep going, this one with the cars. That one, down right there, this one, right?
Yeah.
Yes, so the road is 32 feet wide. And we're gonna be allowing parking on both sides, and generally speaking, if you park your car fairly close to the curb, it takes up about 8 feet of space with the mirrors and things like that. So there's a 16-foot driving lane in the scenarios where you actually have two cars that just happen to be across from each other. Many of the situations, I don't know as you would necessarily have that, because you have driveways that don't necessarily line up on opposite sides, so the cars may be more staggered. But in any case, the scenario of them, worst case scenario, them being side by side in this scenario, you have a 16-foot lane essentially in the middle for vehicles that are traveling in either direction. Theoretically, small, like maybe if you've got two minis, they can fit through there and go by very, very slow. But generally speaking, larger sized vehicles, if you see somebody coming, you got the two cars. Just like Cash Street, just like Lincoln Ave.
Is it Aldrich?
Aldrich is fairly similar, that's got, I mean, it's, oh wait, no, Aldrich is, no, that's wider and dedicated, they got dedicated lane.
It's sort of like that, right? Kat?
Yes,
Cabot,
Cabot's like that too.
Yeah.
Yes.
in those scenarios.
Richards and Richards,
Oh, Richards.
Much narrower.
In those scenarios, you're gonna see a car coming up and you've either got the option of slowing down, letting them, if you don't feel like you can get through with them, that you slow down, kind of keel over a little bit to the side and let one go through and then you get to go through. So that's what it's kind of meant by
So
self-regulating.
that both cars aren't traveling down each respective lane at 25, 30 miles an hour. Now, each car has to throttle around each other and you get much slower speeds. And that is the traffic slowing mechanism on this design.
Is the parking gonna be striped? So to.
No, we're actually not gonna stripe the road from Woodbury all the way to Dennis Street, other than the stop bars, wherever we have them. We're not gonna put any yellow stripes in. It's gonna look like a regular neighborhood street.
But is parking gonna be striped?
No,
No, it's not putting,
no stripes,
anything else.
just pavement. From Woodbury down, it'll be double yellow like it is there.
The crosswalks and the advanced,
That's the.
for the speed, the raised crosswalk, there'll be striping, advanced, striping for that.
So do you have any, did that answer your question?
Well, in terms of like, and I don't know the number of cars on Bartlett versus those other streets you mentioned.
Similar.
I just think there's the same number of cars going down Cass and August as there are on Bartlett.
Cass Street's pretty busy.
Cass Street.
Yeah. You keep in mind that most of the traffic on Bartlett Street's going up the hill. There's very little traffic in that section that goes down the hill. All the traffic going down the hill comes out of Woodbury Avenue, Pleasant Street.
And the goal, I mean, is it true that part of the goal of narrowing the street is to drive more traffic to Hodgson Way and out to the
We're
bike?
trying to do that,
Once
and
that
that
light
is,
gets-
that is true. We're trying to put in a little bit so that people wanna go down Hodgson Way. But what Eric said.
Yeah.
And I firmly believe it myself, is that we are working on a project to get rid of the traffic signal at Carter Street. Okay, so the biggest thing that I think is an impediment, people cutting through your neighborhood, is that it's such a pain in the ass to go down the bypass and have to go through two traffic signals, and then that traffic circle. So if we take out one of the traffic signals entirely, then you're only dealing with one, which you're taking a right turn on, so it's almost like it's not there. And then you just have to deal with the traffic circle. So we think it'll be better. So that's kind of a long-term goal. We're working on that in the department. We're working on it with DOT. But again, that's kind of like the railroad thing where it's one of those things where it's gonna take years to get it done. But meanwhile, we're trying to make this street as safe as we can for you guys. Slow the speeds down so it's tolerable, because we know people are still gonna cut through your neighborhood. We just wanted to do it in a regular fashion, not 35.
You don't want
Let's take, Teresa Hills.
Want to show the extent, you clear on the extents of where that one way, or the regulating zone is?
No,
From
I
Woodbury
mean, you're gonna have it
up
on
to
both
Denver.
sides, so I know there's gonna be spots that are gonna be a little tighter than others.
Yep.
Hi, Teresa.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Teresa Hill, I live at the corner of Bartlett and Thornton. And my question is, I cannot wait to talk to you guys about sewer and water and drainage and all that stuff, and the sidewalk that's going to be moved at the intersection. But I'm going to say one more time, we need 4 stop signs. Now, it may be that after all this traffic calming and the raised walk at the park and all the other things that we're doing, that we may need to get rid of them. But I think it should be the default. Because I truly think more trees, more sidewalks, more calming is going to make that a reasonable intersection.
Okay,
Pick up.
So,
okay, thank you.
The comment was four-way stop it.
We didn't miss-
Hear the last word of her sentence, that's fine.
Okay, no worries.
Was that?
You repeat what she said.
All right, she just, she reiterated, that she thinks that, the 4-way stop should be the default. Instead of doing the raised intersection with the 2-way as the default.
All due respect to Ms. Hill, we have a 4-way stop. We know what we got, doesn't work. I'm gonna take Thursday off. I'm gonna be at the meeting. I support the raised table. I know others do. Want to make sure that's understood. People can disagree. We've already seen for the last couple of decades what a 4-way stop can do. And it's not working. We need the raised table. I'm gonna pound the table on that.
Any more questions? Fine. Okay.
Good. Yay.
Thank you.
Good, exciting.
Thank you.
It's a busy season in the cities, we're excited.